Good looking. You're hot.
I'm beautiful, don't leave me. Io sono bella, non mi lasciare.
I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry that I made you cry. I didn't mean to hurt you.
I'm going to show you a new antiseptic skin cleanser. Excuse me. Your skin will be antiseptically clean. It really pays off.
You wipe up after breakfast. You wipe up after lunch. But after dinner, when you clean up, shine up too, with just the cleaner that shines up as it cleans up. Gets things shining clean. Leaves no dull liquid cleaner film. No dry cleanser grit. Try just the cleaner that shines up as it cleans up.
Nothing like having your face cut off to disturb your sleep. Read the newspaper lately?
Hello, welcome to Goblins of Discord. I'm Larissa, and I am joined by Christine. Christine is a therapist. She works with limerence. She is deep into Enneagram and utilizing attachment theory. And I met Christine over a year ago, and she's actually been instrumental to me understanding type 3, the structure of type 3 as a 3. She's been very generous with sharing her insights and even the stuff that like a lot of 3s try to not like try to pretend doesn't exist. She's been doing the work for a long time. So I feel like this is going to be a very powerful video for 3s and other people who have had interminglings with 3s to like understanding the structure and what's really going on underneath the surface. Christine is a sexual social 3-wing 459, and so she's got the deep insights, and she's ready for rupture. Well, is there anything you want to say before I start topic bombing you?
I mean, to be honest, I'm really happy to just kind of go with whatever comes up, and just see where we go. There's a lot of different things that I just before we were doing this, I was thinking maybe we could talk about twinning, maybe we could talk about adulation, maybe we could talk about the games 3s play.
Yeah.
The deceit and all that kind of stuff, and really how it's so important to kind of be very honest about that stuff, really.
Yeah. I was like almost wondering if we could start with like the parentified, like I'm using your language, parentified position in childhood. The stuff with like the mom or just the attachment stuff. Like, I don't know if that would be like a good foundational jumping off point to the other topic.
The parentification, I think, I use the Enneagram and I use attachment theory. And when I'm sort of thinking about the 3 structure, it's a fearful avoidant structure, usually in terms of attachment. Should I kind of describe attachment? Should I kind of do that? Or...
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 4 attachment styles. There's the secure attachment, the anxious preoccupied attachment, fearful avoidant, and dismissive avoidant. And I can tell you really briefly sort of what they're like. If you've got an anxious preoccupied attachment, you're really kind of wanting to kind of co-regulate with people. You're wanting to move towards people for reassurance. And that feels like the most important thing for you. And the thing that you struggle with is self-regulation. If you're fearful avoidant, you have a pattern where you are frightened of abandonment and you're frightened of engulfment. So you have those 2 core fears. If you're anxious, you're just frightened of abandonment. So when you've got the 2 core fears, sometimes you're kind of moving towards someone because you want reassurance. Sometimes you're moving away from them because you feel overwhelmed by them and you kind of like feel that they're engulfing you. And dismissive avoidant is different again, because if you're dismissive avoidant, you're just frightened of engulfment. You don't have the fear of abandonment. So when you're under stress, you just move away from a person so that you can self-regulate on your own. And with 3s, they tend to have a fearful avoidant attachment. I mean, obviously everyone can have a secure attachment, but 3s, when they're kind of coming to work with me, it tends to be fearful. And it's really interesting, actually. This is just my client work. The women tend to be more on the anxious side and the men tend to be more on the avoidant side. I don't know why that is. I'm actually more on the avoidant side myself. So my kind of core wound was engulfment. And when you're kind of looking at the childhood pattern, In that family system, usually the three is parentified. So they are the kid that is intelligent, able, strong. They're really able to kind of attune to other people. So if there's any kind of like dysfunction in the family system, what happens to the three is that they're then kind of looking after either the parent or they're looking after children in the family. So they're the one with the power, and that power position when you're young, you then kind of take that into adult relationships. And if you don't examine it, then you're just kind of recreating your childhood pattern in relationships, and that causes lots of problems with intimacy. So that's kind of generally in terms of attachment. And in terms of object relations, kind of the pattern with the mother, the kind of sort of traditional idea in terms of object relations, that's like, oh, the three is really attached to the mother. Well, what I've found in my work is that, yes, they are, but it's not always positive, especially for three-wing fours. Often three-wing fours kind of come in and they really hate their mothers. There's like real resentment towards them and an incredible feeling of disappointment, like the attunement wasn't enough. They weren't met by the mother. And that usually kind of sets up a pattern again in adulthood where there can be competition with the mother, there can be hatred towards the mother, contempt towards the mother. They can make the mother the incompetent object for them, which you kind of do as a competency type. When you're angry with someone, you can make them into the incompetent object. So there's all sorts of stuff around that relationship that kind of gets played out later on.
Yeah, you've like you told me about the incompetent object thing like a while ago because it's kind of like a three narrative that's played out for me where I become the incompetent object for the three, and I was like struggling to understand what the hell was going on, and you've really like explained that in a way that feels yeah, transformational to how I sort of viewed type 3 interactions now, where yeah, I was just curious if you wanted to even like unpack that sort of that incompetent object dynamic that plays out with threes, because you've also talked about like the three takeover, and I feel like those are like linked directly. So
So the three structure is like, I am competent. My competency also, obviously, because I'm double competency, like I can like really have that thing of, I am competent. And that's kind of, it feels so important to you. But what you're doing to kind of hold on to that, if you're not careful, you'll make everybody else an incompetent object for you. And that's kind of, it's basically shoring up your ego as a three. So you have that real sense of grandiosity and that sense of I'm superior, I'm better, I'm stronger and more able, while you're in the company of somebody that you view as an incompetent object. So it's kind of, it's symbiotic in a way, but the three doesn't usually realize that they're so dependent on somebody else. And it's really awful. Okay, it's not okay. And threes actually, in their work, they have to kind of grapple with that. I've had to grapple with that and go, I can't do that to people. I can't kind of create a sort of sense of grandiosity by making someone inferior to me. Like, it's not all right. So it's really, really important that you have parity in relationship and you kind of like try as much as you possibly can to kind of create that. And you'll notice for threes who are watching this, you're probably aware of this, like under stress, you can feel so good about yourself. If you look at somebody that you think is incompetent, you can immediately have a kind of rush of, I'm better. Yeah, yeah. And what you're fundamentally doing is your core fear, you're kind of projecting it out onto somebody else so they have to experience it, so you don't have to experience it. So they're feeling worthless, they're feeling incompetent, you feel really great, and I think all the types do that, but that's how it works with the three.
fuck yeah, I know exactly. It's like they throw a shame hot potato at you. It's like I've felt that, like where I've been like, what? This isn't mine. Get this out. Like I don't care about this. Like you take it back. But I was like wondering if you have thoughts on like, because this is like my perception of like sort of the dance that happens where it's like almost like you start as a competent object or you start as this thing where they're like maybe idealizing you or you have something they want or whatever, and it's almost like I don't know if it's like a shark circling or it's like there's sort of like there's this dance that's happening where they're sort of it almost feels like they're taking while they're pulling you closer, and then at some point there's this like almost like rejection kicks in, or it's like either you're no not you, or it's like I've got enough out of you and now like I'm gonna kill you and marry you, or now I have to like get rid of you or something. Like that's sort of just how it feels to be on the receiving end, but I don't know what's happening on the other side of that.
That is what happens. It can happen, when people are kind of not kind of, well, when they're not well, really, when they're sort of in low health, and it's like idealized, devalue, discard, which people, if they're watching, will probably recognize that as the sort of the narcissistic cycle. And that's absolutely what's happening with the three, with the takeover. When you see someone who's a shiny object and they've got what you want, obviously your kind of defense mechanism is identification. So you see someone who's got something that you want, and you want to kind of absorb it and bring it into self. And once you've kind of done that, then that person is then worthless. We're talking about very extremes, obviously, but that is the process. You're worthless to me, and I will devalue and I will discard you. And I'll move on to the kind of the next shiny object that can give me the sort of the next hit of what I feel is valuable. And obviously that's a terrible way to behave. It's not okay. It's just not okay. But that is absolutely the pattern. And if you don't kind of recognize that's what you're doing, you're just kind of repeating that. And actually, the way that I see it is that that's a replay of the relationship with the mother. The disappointment with the mother, the fact that you've fundamentally thrown the mother off the throne and you become the power as a child because you've been parentified. That's what you're replaying over and over and over again, So you're taking the mother's power each time you do a takeover as a 3. So it's so important to kind of examine that and go, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Especially if it's kind of with women, like the competitiveness.
Yeah. Do 3s secretly want to fuck their moms?
So I can say absolutely not. I'm not aware of I think you can sexualize the relationship with a parent, and I don't mean that in terms of Freudian stuff. Like I'm not talking about that, but in terms of like if there's rejection, if there's abandonment, you can sexualize those feelings and kind of, have that in adulthood. I think the kind of, certainly for the 3-wing-4, like the sense of frustration with the mother, the hatred towards the mother because she's like, she hasn't attuned to you enough or attuned to you in the way that you feel that you would want. That can be the sort of the major issue, really, I would say.
Do you notice like with 3-wing-2s, they more put the mother on a kind of pedestal, or are they?
I do definitely see that with the 2-wing.
That they just won't go there, even if they feel it. Do you have any like thoughts on this particular pattern that like a 3 might utilize or look at within themselves?
Looking at the takeover, looking at how, as an assertive type, when you kind of go into, say, a business, you go into somebody else's kind of thing that they've got, if you kind of want it, if it's kind of shiny for you, you're not going to go in like a 7 or an 8 in terms of here I am. You're going to, like, it's basically like being a stealth animal in a way. You kind of go under, you might appear very kind of sweet or very sensitive. You don't look like a threat. Yeah, you don't look like a threat when you first kind of go in. And that's generally, I think, because you're kind of like, you're working out like the lay of the land. Because as an assertive type, that's what you're going to be doing. And then you can kind of take over in terms of other people start to respect you. They start to see your work ethic. You're good with people. You're attuned. So you create the identity of someone who's powerful, and you are powerful as a 3, I think all assertive types are. So just to kind of, if you're a 3 and you're watching this, like really be aware of that pattern, because you think it's because you're clever. It's not. It's because you're just doing your fucking pattern. You're just doing your pattern. That's all you're doing. Every other 3 is doing that pattern. So that sort of sense of kind of arrogance and grandiosity, you're kind of that kind of egocentric way of sort of thinking about yourself, how clever I am. It's really important that you examine that. It's like, it's not clever. It's just your basic programming. That's all that we are. And it's so important to kind of like nail those patterns and go, all right, this is something that's in my structure. It's not attractive to look at, and I have to work with it. I have to get honest with it. And there's also, I think, as a shame type, I think maybe probably less for 3-wing-4 than 3-wing-2. Like, you are going to feel shame when you start looking at this stuff. It's necessary that you feel it, but it's really powerful when you do let yourself feel the shame. Because then you don't have to kind of carry on the pattern, or you catch it faster.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of because, as you know, I have like 3 trauma, but I think like talking to you and like also just kind of getting into the Enneagram stuff of like realizing like this is like a life or death situation for a three, the same way what they've done to me feels life or death, like super high stakes. It's like super high stakes for a three to not feel that shame. So it's like they're gonna like be trying to do whatever they can to not sit in that, or at least that's how it seems. And so it's like have it holding like I like I don't want to paint threes as a villain, even though I do often, because I am still working through my own business. But it's like it's a survival mechanism of the ego. It's like a survival mechanism. It's not malicious in nature, if you will. It's just
And
ego.
it is very much about protecting the self. One thing that I really see with clients, and I've seen it in myself as well, is this kind of like split sense of self. So you're looking at all the bits of the personality that kind of work, you know, the kind of the boastfulness that kind of happens for you as a three. You're kind of looking at all of that stuff and kind of going, this is good, this is who I am. Everything that's in shadow, the feeling of worthlessness, the feeling of that you are contemptible, that there's nothing precious about you, all that kind of stuff. You're trying to kind of run from that. So the easiest way to do that, like I was saying, is to kind of project that onto somebody else, and you don't have to feel it. And my recovery from that, and I'm still recovering from all of the patterns, obviously, like all of us, it's like, okay, so how have I been making myself feel better at the expense of other people? Fundamentally, just kind of looking at that. And I think also kind of really working on the mother stuff. So really working on that level of disappointment. Like you're not going to get that back. If you're disappointed in your mother, you're never going to kind of get a mother that felt like that they attuned to you in the way that you wanted to be attuned to. So you have to grieve. You absolutely have to grieve that, you know.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, do you want to talk about the twinning thing?
This is very specific to me because I work with limerence. I have a lot of clients who are limerent. For anybody who's watching who doesn't know about limerence, it's when you become really obsessed with somebody and you can't stop fantasizing about them. So you become addicted to the fantasy about the person. And I think that for threes particularly, I mean, in a way, like all the types I'm guessing can kind of have this. I get a lot of three clients who have limerence because there's such a longing for attunement and it hasn't happened. You know, the wound is I haven't been attuned to, I haven't been seen the way that I want to be seen. So you're really craving that. And one of the ways that you do it is to attune incredibly well to other people in the hope that they will be able to attune to you. So that kind of stage, and you know, in a relationship, in terms of when people talk about love bombing, that's what the three is kind of really doing. They're like really trying to attune to the other person, twin to be like them, charm them, so that if they are connected, they hope that the other person will be able to do the same to them. And it's always a disappointment because the other person can't. They just can't, you know. If you've been someone who's been parentified in the family system and you've spent your entire life attuning to other people, like you're going to be the best at it. And I think that's something that I do see with threes. Some of them come into sessions and of course they're threes. They're as good at attuning as I am, but they haven't had a therapeutic training. They're just naturally really good at that. So the ability to do it is very, very heightened. And you're going to be disappointed. Other people are not going to be able to do that for you.
Yeah.
If you meet three, they can. So you're constantly looking for a sort of version of yourself in a way to kind of get that.
And what you just said about love bombing too, I think is really interesting because there's this whole like fucking the narcissist versus the empath thing that goes on the internet. Love bombing is not like I'm going to love bomb this person so that then I can like reject them later. It's like not happening consciously. And like I've done a lot of shadow work on my three stuff, and it's like, oh my God, I fucking love bomb people, totally love bomb people. And it's like not on purpose. It's like, what is this? What is this? Like it's so intoxicating and exciting and enlivening that it's like full of joy, and I don't know, like there's an expansiveness. I'm not sure like if that it feels the exact same for like a three, but it's like there is this like villainization of these patterns that are just like survival mechanisms. So how you framed it as it's like you're looking for this kind of lost self or not, but it's like your twin, this attunement.
You know, it is there's a deep longing, and it's really, for me, you know, the kind of the whole thing about three with gaze. It's like I think it's the mother's eyes. I think it's the baby kind of searching for the mother's eyes. And I think that's what we're doing in limerence. Like really, really looking at that. I mean, I know that Josh Levine, when he talks about gaze, in terms of threes, I think he's absolutely right about that. It's like it feels like the most important thing to have that, you know, and to be seen feels like the most important thing. You're kind of longing for it. You're also resisting as much as you possibly can, but there is that kind of that deep sense of like, I truly, truly wish to be seen by another person. So I will spend as much time as I possibly can, create as much energy as I possibly can towards being able to do that for other people, you know. And when you do feel seen, and it's rare as a three, when you do, it feels amazing. It really does. And it feels like instantly bonding when you feel that.
I just want to said as a side note, I think Josh Levine's a nine wing one, but no shade. But what you're talking about being seen is interesting because that's always like connected to nine. But I have also noticed it's like a three thing too. So it's like the three gays is like they want gays, whereas nines are more like averse to the gays. So I don't know if you have thoughts on like three versus nine being seen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got a nine fix, so it's probably like a double dose for me. But I know that for me, like being seen, it's like I'm absolutely seeking that. And also it's that thing of kind of trying to be seen. It's kind of for the three, it's like intensity rather than intimacy. You want to be on the pedestal. Okay, you want to be in that one-up position. You're used to it because you were parentified as a child. So you want your audience, and it feels really important to have your audience. You know, it's like I will have it. Um, I think that's massively different in terms of like the nine as a withdrawn type. The three is like, no, 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 give me my stage, give me my moment. You know, it's really powerful. And I think every three is like you kind of put them in front of a group and they're off. It's like, yes, this is for me. This is where I should be. And it's that thing of the adoration. You're wanting adulation, and you can get really addicted to it. Again, it's different from intimacy because it's like, you know, you are the object when you're adored. When you are close to someone and you have intimacy and they know you, that's where threes like really, really struggle. When you're on a stage, it's like it's fantastic. It's not a problem. So it's that thing as well of like the definite the kind of the confusion in it in terms of like I want to be known. I truly genuinely want to be known, but when I am known, I feel shame. And also you often, because of the attachment pattern, you start to feel engulfed. The engulfment, like the feeling of being smothered, comes up for threes, and that's where they're out the door. You know, that's why they'll kind of leave. And also you've got massive stuff about sexual addiction and sexual anorexia. And you'll see like a really common pattern with threes is like sex addiction in terms of they're out there, you know, they're doing what they're doing with everybody, but in their primary relationship, they really struggle with sexual anorexia because actually it's like intimacy is so frightening.
Yeah, do you want to go into that? That's the juicy, pulpy part. Let's go there, Christine.
I work with that a lot, you know, because people kind of it looks like the three is sexually very performative very often, you know, can be promiscuous, but that's all kind of in thrall. It's like the play. And if you're playing, then it's absolutely fine. You can do that. But when it comes to kind of really being present with another person and being known, that's really scary, really is. And like I said with attachment, you know, when you are known, and the feeling of engulfment that comes up for I haven't worked with a three who hasn't had this pattern, by the way. Like the feeling is like I feel disgust, I feel revulsion, I feel terrified of like really being present with this other person sexually.
What is the path that like or the pattern that usually plays out?
Well, that's when threes are unfaithful. You know, that's, you know, because it's like the adulation from a partner starts to feel really uncomfortable. So that's usually when they kind of they act out sexually. And you also have intrigue addiction, which is really common with threes. So it's like getting attention, getting adulation from lots and lots of different people, you know. And it's eye contact. You can get very, very addicted to eye contact. So it's just being checked all the time.
Is it sort of maintaining that feeling of being on top, like being in control, or
Yeah. Well, it's like it's validation for your identity. It's validation for the kind of the performance.
what happens when a three fully just surrenders to the vulnerable relationship and like because
It's
obviously that's like an arc that you've been through, like
yeah, it's exceptionally painful. You have to process the engulfment, and the engulfment is full of shame, full of that feeling of being worthless, completely worthless, and that you truly don't have any value, and you feel like physically stuck. It's a very strange thing. When I've experienced it myself, and also like clients who've experienced it, it's like that feeling of like being glued, like you're just physically kind of absolutely in paralysis. And that's one of the reasons that it's so awful and you don't want to experience it, that you would rather leave. You would rather not have intimacy than have that. Because, you can't perform intimacy. You can't, if you truly are opening to like your heart and opening to your feelings and you're with another person, then you are vulnerable. And there's so much kind of self-hatred for the three around being vulnerable. There's so much fear of it. It's also the inner critic is like, you can't be weak, you can't be vulnerable, you can't expose yourself. That's not okay. I think certainly for me, that was one reason that I thought I was an 8 when I mistyped, because the horror of vulnerability is so palpable.
I did date this one 3 for like 8 months or something. But I remember when I'd had enough finally, and we broke up and whatever, then it went on for like almost a year that he was like, I remember this time where you almost told me that you loved me and I just wouldn't receive it. And like, it was just like this thing where he kept circling back to these vulnerable moments that like he was processing way after our relationship. And I was like, dude, I'm over this shit. Like, I moved on. I'm not, I'm just like wondering if that's also like a thing that happens for 3 sometimes, is like this post vulnerability hangover, or they realize they had it and then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's often happens in limerence for 3s. They're kind of going over and over those points and realizing how much they've lost when they do start to do some work on themselves. And it's exceptionally painful to realize that you've lost really precious people at times, because of that kind of, it's the dust when it kind of rises in you and you have to leave. And also you don't realize, because this is in shadow, it's shadow material, like how much you long for the connection. So the contempt is it's like a protective mechanism. You don't have to feel any of those vulnerable feelings if you're in contempt. I think especially for 3 wings 4s, actually, they kind of, because of the 4 wing, like you feel a lot of contempt. You're really feeling it.
Yeah. Do you want to go into the contempt, like coping mechanism or the defense mechanism?
I guess it's just it protects you from being vulnerable, just very, very kind of simply. And when you're experiencing it, you tend to feel like a sense of power. And usually in terms of attachment, you're moving from the anxious position into the avoidant position when you're experiencing contempt. So that's when you have agency, you feel like you don't need anything, you feel really confident, you feel really, really good. And you don't have to access your vulnerability at all. So very often kind of 3s prefer that position because they don't have to kind of feel vulnerable. When they move into the anxious position and they're able to feel love and they're able to feel connected, that feels really terrible for them, and they judge it. Not every 3 is like that, but if someone is more avoidant, they feel that. And the contempt, certainly with the 4 wing, can just make you feel so regulated. It really can. And that's when really can. That's when you're using another person as an incompetent object, that they're much, much less than you. Mm-hmm. It's unpleasant stuff. I wanted you to talk about the villain arc.
The villain arc.
Yeah, like how you see it, because that will hopefully kind of.
I mean, I can only like really speak to like my personal experience of the 3 villain arc. When you mentioned that, I was thinking about like how to like condense it, and it's like, have you seen Interview with a Vampire?
No.
Oh, what? Oh my God, you would love it. It's such a like 3 wing 4 movie.
Lestat, yeah, I've seen a bit of it. I've not seen all of it.
I think you would like it, maybe. But yeah, it's like Lestat, which is Tom Cruise. It's like he creates like his like young subject, like his beautiful, perfect doll, like Claudia, played by Kirsten Dunst, and Louis, which is his sort of beautiful partner, unwillingly captured to kind of feed Lestat's ego and get him what he wants. And he has this like image of success and whatever. But then Claudia gets sick of it, and so she feeds him these these dead boys, because drinking the poisoned blood is what kills him. But it doesn't kill him. It turns him into this like shriveled creature. He has to go to the swamp. He has to like crawl his way out of this shame swamp, all dehydrated. He's no longer beautiful. He's like disfigured, and he hides in this like this fallen down empty home, and he like has to like eat rats for sustenance, and it's like sorry, sort of like how I see the in my life is like the three villain arc is like they come in, they try to like suck your blood, they try to suck your juicy vitality out of you. And then when I've become aware of it, this is before I even knew the Enneagram, it's like I just start slow dripping poison through my veins is sort of how it feels until like, and they can't take it because like it's 3, not like 4 in the heart space. So it's like they can't hold that poison because like they still want to be seen as like the shiny thing. And so it's like, if you're going to drink my blood, I'm going to make sure like you suffer for those sips that I didn't consent to. And then it's like, they destroy themselves in the process of trying to destroy me, or at least this is the narrative I rewrite in my mind. I don't even know if this is what you meant by this question, but it's sort of like the tragic arc of the 3 is like they pick the wrong subject and they're destroyed by the subject because the subject was tainted. That's sort of how I how I look at the villain arc with 3s. But out in the other world, I mean, I obviously see it's like the takeover thing that you've mentioned and spoken of. And then, yeah, like I think, and you've talked about like 3s getting like caught up in their own lies and then fucking them over. But I don't know if that's even
Yeah. No, I mean, listening to you talk about that, it sounds so 4-coded. It's
yeah, probably.
and I'm like wondering if if a 3 kind of comes into your orbit and gets that, if they're like, well, what's that?
Yeah.
Probably, I'm guessing more used to kind of 6s and 9s in terms of like being able to kind of do that and not be called on that, So that's really interesting. And that I think I don't know, I'm kind of like really kind of curious about what that's like when you as a 3 kind of encounter something that doesn't necessarily look assertive, because I don't know if I mean, obviously you've got assertiveness in your type, but if there's something kind of like really unusual about it, so it'd be very attractive, but also not being able to kind of like really categorize it. Obviously as a 3 you're kind of wanting to categorize pretty much everyone and kind of go, oh, I know what to do with that version, so I mean that would be really interesting. I think I think my own experience of the kind of the villain arc is really, it's about that you screw with yourself because of your own lies. So you kind of like in your desperation to kind of create something, and you're faking it to make it, usually as a 3 to kind of get to the top, but then that process of faking it, like that always seems to kind of come back, and the 3 has to kind of wrangle with that or kind of figure it out, this public exposure. And whenever I see a 3 that happens to, I'm always like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable because I know what that is. I know what that is. And for me, there's a real feeling of like, this is why honesty is so important. You just can't lie, you can't, because it just doesn't, it never ends well. Never, ever, ever. Maybe there are 3s out there that have got away with it, but I don't see it working. It just messes with your system so much. And again, that's maybe like 3-wing 4-coded rather than 3-wing 2. Because with the 4-wing, you have that sort of sense of like, I feel really uncomfortable about lying. You're still lying as a 3, but the 4 is like, don't you dare. So it's trying to kind of navigate that, I think. It's like having a foot in 2 different realms, One is about authenticity, being real, being true, being completely who you are. And the other one is like, what works? And there is no moral compass here. It's like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think like 3-wing 2s, I mean, I think 3-wing 4s can do this too, but I think 3-wing 2s are the ones who utilize relationships and like smear campaigns probably more aggressively than like a 3-wing 4, where it's like because they're creating those special bonds with people, and they have more like, I think, ego around being like kind of popular or like likable or something. And so then they utilize those like special connections to like destroy somebody if they're in three mode of like this person saw behind my mask, this person has the info that can take me down, they know something or whatever it is, then I'm gonna like turn everybody on them. Like that's happened to me multiple times, and it's always been three wing twos so that have done that to me. So I think
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
and I don't know, like I always see like that kind of thing. It's like, well, then those people, I don't want to be friends with those people because they're stupid. So it's like you can have them. I don't need them. Thank you. But I think three ring four villainy is like a lot more cutting and like subtle and insidious probably, and like strategic and like methodical perhaps than a
I
three
think it's
ring two.
trying. I think you're kind of using other people to do your dirty work,
Mm.
which you tend to be quite good at, I would say, as a three wing four, should you kind of be doing that. So it's very much about, three wing. I think threes are just generally kind of quite plausible. Like people, I mean, I know there's this thing about threes being fake, and I do get that, but I think also like threes tell a good story. And say you're a nine, like a gentle nine, and a three tells you their story, you're probably going to be on their side because they're very persuasive. And then you as a nine might do the three's dirty work for them. And that kind of thing can really happen. And then the threes just, you know, looks fine, like hasn't done anything. There's a transactional analysis game called Let's You and Him Fight. And I do love like TA in terms of, looking at the Enneagram and looking at the sort of the structure of the games. And that one is very much like the three game. Like, I'm going to make you fight because I'm strategic and I understand how to do that, but I'm not going to fight, and it's not going to look like I'm doing anything here. And for any threes out there who are kind of like looking at this and going, oh, I recognize that. Again, that's really, really important to kind of notice in yourself and go, I really should stop doing that. Not okay.
Or you can just ramp it up and become Ultra 3 by learning the Enneagram. Here's how not to get caught. I do notice like because threes like are good at like kind of planting seeds that will pay off later. And so it's like because they're heart types, it's like they're almost like shifting the emotional landscape. It's like they're almost shifting reality where it's like nines can kind of gaslight and oh, I don't know, I didn't do that, I didn't whatever. Whereas threes are like kind of rewriting reality ahead of time almost is what it seems like sometimes, where if they're like in strategy mode, if they're like planning for some kind of agenda, it's like they're here's these things I want you to know about me, and that will shift your perception later and how you feel about me and how you feel about this other person. And I mean, I'm making this kind of socially coded, but that's what they feel like to me. It's like they're playing little chords on a piano, or they're setting some sort of rhythm that you'll emotionally sort of flow into, sort of.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I think that's really true, and it's also it's because of that level of attunement that you have. Like if you've spent your entire childhood like attuning incredibly intensely to people, that's your focus. That's what you're good at. It's your skill set. You know. So there might be lots of other things that you're good at, but fundamentally your instrument is people. And I don't know if every other type is kind of doing that in the same way. And if you are that, like I was saying about being the parentified child, a really important part of parentification is that you lose respect for your parent, that you just don't respect them. And if you're a child who feels stronger than your parent, who's lost respect for them, how can you develop a moral compass? You can't. You can't, though, can you?
I love that. I think like reality is fake anyways, so it's sort of like what is a moral compass? But um but it's like if your deeds are like blowing back on you and you're not actually getting anything sort of genuinely satisfying out of an experience that feels like, I don't know, like authentically like where you're like this is like satisfying on a soul level, then it's something to like look at, I guess. But you talked about before we got on about three wing two versus three wing four, like the wings, like being like repression versus introjection. I wondered if you had any other thoughts on that.
This is just my sort of take on it. And it's only from my own work, but like having interjection as my wing. So having identification for me as a 3, and then having introjection, I think there is that real confidence and comfort with looking at negative stuff. It may also be for me because I've got like the 5 fix. I'm just it feels as if it's really, really necessary to look at whatever is in the self and isn't okay. And I do think that for the 3 wing too, because they have repression, they're a competency type and they have repression. It feels like it's harder for them to kind of really be able to do that. And it's not to say that they can't do it in therapy, they absolutely can, but it feels like it's less interesting to them as well, that they're not going to kind of naturally navigate towards that. Whereas I think 3 wing 4s, I wanted a therapist by the time I was 12. And I was in Scotland and I was born in 1971. I'm really old. So at 12 years old in Scotland, when therapy was not a thing, I wanted a therapist. And that's classic, I think, with 3 wing 4s. It's just this sort of natural sense of like, I want to understand myself. It really feels like that. And I see 3 wing 4s who are amazing in therapy. They're so brilliant. And they tend to kind of feel very good about how introspective they are. So they've got ego around their ability to introspect. And that seems to be very different from the 3 wing 2. There's much less comfort with it, really. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like what I've observed is like people that have like a lot of positive in their type and like 3 wing 2s, it's like they'll kind of dance with self-development, but they won't really won't self-develop. It's like cherry picking a few terms or intrigues or something, but but also you look amazing. I think this is like speaks to like your type. Well, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on value actually, because that was something I didn't actually understand about 3s initially, where I was like, what do you mean? What value do you have? What value do you bring to the table? What does that fucking mean? But it seems like very important.
It does. It feels like if you're not bringing value, then you are worthless. Like there's no kind of gray area. So it's either you're kind of like you are bringing something that's useful and helpful, and that feels very important. Those 2 words like feel very important, or you have no value, which obviously to anybody else is not going to sound like much, but to 3s it's like it's absolutely devastating to feel that you're not bringing something. And I notice for me that when I feel most shame, it's when I've made a mistake around giving something to somebody that's not that valuable. So with my competency, and again, that might be because it's, with the 5 fix as well, it's like I have to bring something that is helpful to somebody, whatever it is that they're doing. It's like that feels so important. And if I don't do that, or if I give somebody information that doesn't feel completely accurate, or it's not well thought out, I will immediately feel shame. So it's like it's completely tied to identity for me.
My 5 friend is he sort of peppers it in different groups, but how heart types can use their head center to kind of amplify what they're doing in the heart space. And so that does seem like relevant to what you're talking about, because it's like where you identify your value would also have to do with like your special knowledge and like this kind of stuff. And like you are in your own very specific lane with like limerence, Enneagram, attachment theory, like recovery. It's like this very specific bubble that you're curating.
Yeah, that's true. And I think kind of outside of that, people would be a bit like, what? Like my interests are very 5 in that way. They're like very specific, very coded. And that's what I'm interested in. And I can talk about other things. I can, but it's like this is where I am. And I do think as well, like having a rejection fix, because I've got 3 and 9, like your identity kind of, I think it seems to sort of focus around having a hex head fix, because 3 and 9 are kind of, well, let's say that they're not as kind of strong in their center, I would say. And I've always had that sense of like, oh, I'm a rejection type. That's why I typed as an 8, because it's like I can feel that. I can feel like how powerful that is. And obviously it's not, it's just a fix, but it would make sense as well. I like what your friend said, that you would be doing that from the heart space. I definitely experienced that. And I also think it's just because it feels more powerful. Maybe if I was a 6 fix, it would be different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it feels like there's the certainty of 5. It's like it's so certain, and I can rely on that. I don't struggle with identity in terms of a lot of 3s I see kind of have that sense of I don't know who I am, and I'm like never related to that. Totally know who I am. Such a sort of solid sense of self, and it's probably from the 5.
It is like some weird thing where some 3s do have a sense of self, that they're like, I have a sense of self, and other 3s, it seems like they've sort of almost like not self-abandoned, but they've just sort of like, it's like, I am this, I am whatever this thing is, like I am whatever these people say I am. So I'm curious like how you sort of like what you've observed in that sort of contradiction that 3s seem to have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in OPS, so I kind of use their system as well, and I definitely see it in terms of like IP and EJ, like the EJ3s, even if they're 3-wing 4, they seem to have less of a kind of sense of self. So I don't think it's just a kind of 3-wing 2, 3-wing 4 thing. And I'm an IP, and as an IP, I'm just like me, 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 me. Me, forever and ever. And so I'm very kind of self-referential and very kind of confident, just as it's coming from. And it is something like, because originally when I started to kind of look at 3, I'd be like, oh well, the 3-wing 2s, they seem to be kind of much more other focused. The 3-wing 4s are much more self-focused, but that's not actually always accurate. I've got clients who are 3-wing 4s, and they have that thing of, it's a really interesting thing. They have that sense of like, the 4-wing is so strong, it's really, really there. But they also have that sense of, when I think about what I want, I have to consider everybody else's opinions before I kind of figure out what I want. Whereas for me, I'm like, why would I consider anybody else's opinion ever? That's growth for me. That's growth to consider someone else's opinion. And I do wonder if maybe it's got to do with attachment. Just talking to you now in terms of like, if you're more on the avoidance side, that is where your kind of sense of self-confidence and self-agency comes, because you're self-regulating. And if you're more on the anxious side, you're looking for reassurance, you're looking for other people to kind of give you a sense of, I feel okay, and that's something that I do see more with men actually, who are 3-wing 4s. There is that kind of sense of like, that they're more on the avoidance side. Obviously I am like that as well, so it's not just exclusively men, but there is a way in which they have that sense of like, I know who I am, I'm really kind of comfortable. So it might be the kind of, if you're fearful avoidant as a 3, like I was saying, 3s are, that if someone's sort of more on the anxious side, that's where you struggle to kind of figure out if you're okay on your own.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe it, I mean, I kind of hate the idea of health levels, but maybe it is like moving up the health levels, because I notice this with 9s as well. It's like 3s and 9s. There are some people who are like, what do you mean? I can't be a 9. I know who I am, da 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 da. Or like, I can't be a 3, like, because of this. But so there is this sort of like, maybe there's this integration that does or does not occur at some point in their journey where it like clicks into place. And maybe for some people it happens when they're children, and for some people it happens when they're like 60 or 80, or I don't know, never. Do you want to talk about like 3s and 6s relationship dynamics, or no? Is that too much of a hot topic?
I'm happy to. I mean, I've based a lot of my work on that, relationship, because it doesn't work often. And it can be very frustrating for both people. So I think more and more what I'm interested in is sort of the intertype dynamics, and the kind of the script that you bring as your type, and then the other person's script that they have, and like where it just doesn't work, or why you're attracted to each other. I'm guessing you're doing the same thing with 3s in terms of figuring out those, those dynamics. And I think with 3s and 6s, because that's a kind of classic kind of relationship in terms of like attachment as well, someone who's anxious preoccupied with someone who's avoidant, and that's played out for me pretty much always in friendships, and it's been really difficult because it kind of activates that whole cycle for the 3 of devalue, discard, and the 6 obviously, like, it absolutely activates for them that feeling of like seeking support from someone who can be self-regulated, but also then kind of feeling that you need more reassurance. So it activates for them that sense of like, I'm getting more and more needy in this relationship, I'm not getting my needs met. So that's a huge part of what I deal with, because so many couples have that dynamic. And it's incredibly frustrating for people. Incredibly frustrating.
When I realized how many threes I've tangoed with over the years and how they're the ones who stood out to me as my friendship or like romantic things that were the most charged and the most like disruptive and like upsetting and then through that transformative on some level, it's like all threes. And I was like trying to do shadow work on that. Like, what in me is like attracted to this? And it is like reinforcing my own ego too, on the negative flip side of it. Neither of my parents are threes. So what threes get out of it per se, other than, yeah, it's just,
Well, I think it's the thing about being seen. I mean, I felt very seen by you, and it's not just about, when you did my typing. It's not just that you kind of did the typing and got my type right. I think you can really see people, certainly threes.
thank you.
I mean that, and that's probably the draw. Because if you're a three, you're kind of like, you're looking to be seen, but you're also kind of like scared of being seen. You have that kind of jealousy, like I was saying earlier. And I think kind of that thing of like, oh, this person has something. They can see me. They can see through me. They might even be able to call me on my shit. Because really, as a three, unconsciously, you're looking for that. But also, if somebody does do that, you're angry with them, usually. So I think that's probably what it is, because I can see how threes would be like active in their pattern with you and kind of go into that pattern, and actually meet something that would be different and would be difficult for them, because you're kind of longing for that. You're longing to be called on everything, I would say. Usually, if you kind of are in a therapeutic process and you work on yourself, then you call yourself out. But to kind of meet somebody who could potentially do that, that's very exciting as well as scary, I would say.
What I also really like about like our connection is that is that you do just like own the three shit. So it's like it's fun to me because it's like I think like what I'm seeking in friendships and relationships and whatever is people who are totally honest with themselves and that they will just own their shit, because it's like, oh, you're like not you but like the general you. It's like if somebody will just like own like what they actually want, what they're actually like, it's, I mean, maybe this is like reactive influence, but it's like that's great. Let's just be nasty together. Let's just be bastards. Like it's, I don't know, it feels better to just accept yourself, and if other people accept themselves and their patterns, then it just feels like, okay, now we're like at some sort of baseline of like, let's go fucking crazy now, guys. Like like this is more fun, this is more enlivening, it feels more fueling, creative, like it feels like you could actually see the world and be in the world in a way that feels more meaningful than like if you're just all trying to avoid feeling feelings and like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Not that I'm sure I don't like get into my ego like endlessly, but I don't know. I think it's like just more exhilarating when people want to be challenged and like will challenge you. And I think that's why like people like us like also stay in these things for so long, where other people will dip into the Enneagram for a few months and then bounce, because it's like you don't really want to go all the way down, do you?
It's painful. It's gonna be really painful to do it. But I mean, maybe this is the four wing, and like you having a four fix, like for me, it feels like there is nothing else to do. Maybe that's also having the sexual instinct. It's like, immediacy is the most important thing to me, really. It's like what's truly happening between two people. So even though I'm as a three, like I'll have performative stuff, I'll have all of that. Like there's a longing, like a real longing to like have the true thing, have the real thing. It's like, where is that? And I know when I don't have it. I know when I don't. And I know when there's like a part of me that's not going to be completely authentic or completely real. And I'm like, ugh, I feel repelled by my own lack of honesty. It feels like that this is what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. What I don't like is like when you are being real and then somebody sucks you back into the game, where it's like, or it's like you're like you get used to kind of just being able to like operate with people at a certain level, and then you interact with somebody who won't go to that level, and it's like, how do I, oh, you're in the game, and so now I have to like, I don't know, go to another dimensional plane to like interact with you, and it's like I don't want to go to that plane. So I feel
Yeah.
like the more you do self work too, it can kind of be like even more alienating on some level, but whatever, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's true. And also I think like, I spend a lot of time listening to people who are doing self-work, but obviously they're kind of usually at the start of a process. Sometimes people have like done loads of work, which is really wonderful. But it's that kind of like it's the kind of usually it's the sort of the beginning stage. And so for me, it's really important when I'm not at work to not have to do anything other than kind of like get to be myself, completely myself. And of course I am completely myself at work, but it's like it's that thing of I'm not in relationship in terms of a relationship of two people who are in, like I don't know, like a friendship or something. I'm in a relationship to help somebody else, like I'm in that helping role. And so when I'm not at work, it's like I just need to be me, like fully, this is it, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
like, and do you want to like unpack that a little bit more, like too, because it kind of relates to like it almost sounds like what you're saying is like taking the mask off, or like just it's like what is that? Yeah.
Well, I think it's like I said, it's like it's being in a helper position, which you have to be in, obviously, if you've got clients. So your own things, what's kind of happening for you. It's not that you park them because you're sort of like you're in contact with your own emotion completely, obviously, with transference and countertransference, that you're aware of that stuff. But that's a kind of specific relationship. So it's a kind of intimacy. But there's not it's not about my needs being met, obviously, in that kind of relationship. It's about the client's needs being met. So when I'm kind of like just me, when I'm not working, then I need mutuality. I need to kind of be with someone in friendship or in relationship who's just like, okay, who are you? And I can meet you. I can meet you with who I am. Um, and that's something that feels increasingly important to me, actually, and harder to find
Hmm.
because I find that I'm a lot. I'm a lot as a 3-wing 4, I think. I'm quite an intense person. So,
Love it.
I am. I realize that. And
I don't think you're a lot. Like I mean, I think intense in a beautiful and like insightful and profound way. So,
yeah,
um,
but it's that thing of like needing to be met. It's like it's really, really powerful. Like I need to be met. I'm
what
looking for
happens
that.
like when you're not met? Like,
Then I'm so bored and I'm like I can't have that conversation. And I have infinite patience for clients when they're kind of struggling with their stuff. I have so much respect for them, especially because they've kind of turned up, they're paying for sessions. It's not easy sometimes to pay for sessions. Like I have so much. On my own time, if somebody bores me, I'm like done. Time for that.
this is like maybe really random. I couldn't find the exact quote. I'm pretty sure Charlize Theron's a three. She had this quote. I swear she said this, but I can't find it. It was years ago. She said, "I'm just looking for a man who can put me on the bottom." And I was like, "Oh, like that's hot." And I don't know. It feels like maybe like some kind of three-ish, maybe an assertive frame, but yeah, I don't know, because it plays with like power dynamics that like need to be on top, like as a three, or need to sort of be the elevated, competent, whatever. Is there like also like a kind of dynamic that you've observed with threes, like having a bottom top like sort of dynamic, or
I think about like my own therapist. And I think it's about playing with attraction and repulsion in the work. I mean, and obviously that might be kind of in terms of my instinct stacking, but what I want to do when I'm kind of working on stuff is like that's what I'm interested in, kind of like really kind of being connected to somebody and also being repulsed by them. And I think that's the kind of that those are the kind of the abandonment and the engulfment kind of core wounds. So I do think that can happen in sexual dynamics. It can happen in kind of close relationships. And I certainly see it kind of currently. That's where that stuff is being played out for me with my therapist in terms of how do I kind of like navigate this feeling of revulsion and attraction. Like how do you do that? What do you kind of do with that? I don't know if that answers your question, actually.
well, no, but that's an interesting topic that I feel like most people probably wouldn't connect to. So it's sort of like what is that like? Like what does that feel like?
I think it's like incredibly meaningful for me to kind of wrestle with those states. You know, that's the kind of the revulsion and the contempt that you get, I think, as someone who's sort of on the more avoidant, you know, if you're like anxious or you're avoidant, like I was saying earlier. So you're kind of, and I do think it's sexual. I do, in terms of the instincts. It's like what you're really attracted to, you might also feel absolutely disgusted by. So how do you work with that? And obviously, one of the ways that I work with that is I work in my own personal therapy around that. And you know, I've got clients who have sexual in their stacking, and they're working on that stuff as well. Like, how, if you're a 3, how do you have intimacy when that stuff is fired? Like, how do you do it? You've got to get in there. You got to figure it out.
Is there kind of like a bait, like an equilibrium or like a median point that you can reach, or is it always like in a polarity?
I mean, I would imagine that some people have kind of reached a kind of place of balance. I mean, I'm in my 50s and I haven't. Like, I'm still working out this stuff. And I think polarity is still kind of present in my structure. And maybe again, that's maybe also like being the 3 and having the 4 wing, you know. It's like many things can be true. And so I'm always working with duality, I think. I mean, and not that's not everybody's path. Obviously, sometimes people don't experience that. I really do. I do have that sort of like sense of, oh, it's almost like being in 2 realms. Like, how do you reconcile the 2 realms?
I'd be curious if you have like further thoughts on like compartmentalization in the heart space.
Yeah, I think it's one of the kind of the most useful things that you can have as a survival mechanism. It works incredibly well, but it also absolutely kind of cuts you off from intimacy as well. You know, I had one client who talked about like his museum of secrets, which I loved. It's like a really, really good way of describing it. And he said every now and again I kind of go and visit the museum, look at all the dusty displays, and then I leave.
The
And it's
Museum of Secrets. Oh.
yeah, I really thought that was like such a wonderful way of describing it. And I think, you know, you've got like a lot that's compartmentalized before you go to therapy as a 3. You just have, and it's so important to kind of like figure out what's in that shadow. Usually, it's kind of completely smeared in shame, right? You're going to have to go there and like wallow in the shame, because you have to, it's like kind of it's like soul retrieval work in a way. Like, I can understand shamanism in the sense that like there's split off parts and you have to kind of bring them back into the self. And that's what it feels like with compartmentalization. And one thing that can happen is that you have this horrific empty feeling internally as a 3. The older you get, the more you're kind of disconnected from truth, the more you're in like just lies. You feel this horrible, horrible emptiness. And then as you kind of like integrate your shadow, you start to feel whole. It's usually like so much grief that you kind of go through to kind of get there, but you feel like really kind of full again, possibly full for the first time, actually. And I remember sort of feeling that myself, like, oh, I'm actually like, I can feel my heart. Like, it feels kind of like it's full. And that was after like a lot of grief work and a lot of kind of just, yeah, visiting the museum.
Oh, wow, I love that.
Feels so different because you feel, and it happens to anyone in active addiction. I think all addicts kind of will like talk about that thing of, you know, I feel so empty here, like I feel completely empty. But I think as a heart type, it's particularly intense for you when you get in touch with it, because usually you're disconnected from your heart, and then obviously in the work that you do in therapy, you start to kind of connect to it, and it's like, wow, it's empty, it's really not there. And then it kind of eventually you sort of just have that sense of like, oh, it's connected again, you know.
There's this, so, you know, I follow some like lady bosses on the internet. It's like my secret shame. But one, this lady who I'm pretty sure is a 3 wing 4, maybe 6-1, made this post, and it was like, at first I saw the crying, and I was like, oh, here we go, the 3 authenticity post to get more clients. And I read all of it and I was like, oh wow, no, she's been doing the work. Like she's like get like this wasn't just, I mean, I'm sure there was an element of performance art to it, but she was talking about like I was making this much money and I did not feel seen by others. I had got like this and this and I still felt like I'm nothing. Like, and she talked about that and I was like, that must have actually been really fucking cathartic and powerful and horrible for her to like even share that with her audience. Like, but created like a huge resonance, like a big ripple outwards. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, there is the nothingness. There is that place of just nothing, that is the no value place, and it's absolutely horrible when you hit it.
the no value place.
Yeah. And also like you kind of feel shame for the first time, because even though you're a shame type, most threes don't kind of connect with shame. I remember in my 20s going, what's shame? Never felt it.
Yeah.
Never. What? Completely shameless in your behavior, obviously, because you've got no moral compass as well. You and then when you hit it, it is unbearable. It's like an agony, and it feels like your whole body feels disgusting when you kind of like really start to hit shame. So it's like a massive thing to kind of really have that feeling of I am nothing, I have no value, I am full of shame, I am shame. It's not just like I'm full of it, I actually am it.
Yeah. And I guess like how you kind of feed the like the no value places through the dominant instinct, I guess, or like it would be like a
Yeah.
feeding it through the levels of or the order of the instincts maybe like so like for like self-pres threes it would be like more for like having those like the house, the car, the fucking this and that and like social threes maybe, I mean I'm just speculating, but it would be more like through who you know, like your social network, who you are in terms of that social network, and then the sexual instinct would be more those connect like those electric connections, like your hook, like your ability to hook to keep people sort of like intrigued and like I guess like adulating maybe. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on like any of that or?
Well, I think as well, I mean, and again, this is just my own experience, like as, in terms of having sexual, like I went through a phase of like just masses and masses of skin issues, huge skin issues. And I really think that that was profound. It was profoundly painful and difficult for me. And it's kind of laughable in a way that you think, oh, somebody's skin can like really impact your identity. But of course, as a three, like it really, really did. And I think that was one of the best things that could happen to me, of like realizing I'm all right as a person without being like a perfect object. I'm okay. And actually I didn't know that. I really didn't. So there's something about wrestling with beauty. I mean, age
Mhm.
can do it for a sexual three, of course. You kind of you become older, you're going to have to wrestle with it, and obviously some people don't want to wrestle with it, do whatever they can. But I think that was honestly one of the best things that could happen to me, of kind of like, oh, I still have value in the eyes of others. I can still have value for myself while I've lost this.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and it felt absolutely terrible. But I don't think it was a bad experience looking back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I connect to that also. Just yeah. I don't think I've had my arc yet though with that one. I feel too gross to go back out into the real world, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So like
Yeah.
my eyes started twitching, so I'm like, oh, there's something there.
It's really intense. It's like, like being here with you and kind of like I'm in a ridiculously hot box and my face is red and the first time that I've done anything on YouTube and I'm like, fuck it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I'm honored.
have to go with that. Um, and I certainly could not have done that in the past. Like the shame would have been like really, really terrible, of like, well, I can't just be who I am on a hot day.
Well, you
Like
look good. You look dewy. Your skin looks beautiful, shimmering.
do you know what I mean? There's that stuff of and I got really bad rosacea, like really just overnight, around shame, around being shamed by a female friend. And it's like a shame wound. And that's really interesting how that kind of thing happens.
Wait,
Um,
like it caused you to have like a what the fuck?
as if it would, like who are you? You are kind of like your visage, that's what you kind of are.
Yeah. That's why you got to do all the work, because then people can't fuck with you. Like,
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, and that was like, that was wild stuff actually when that happened, because she said to me, "You've stolen my beauty."
oh, you've stolen my beauty. What happened?
And it went to my heart. It went to my heart. And I like went to bed sobbing. I still can't fully explain it. I know it's about my mother. And I woke up the next morning and I had horrendous skin, literally overnight. And I'd always had really lovely skin. I stole her beauty. And it was like, that's real kind of cursey shit, right?
How do you steal somebody else's beauty?
Well, I think threes can actually. So I think that's one of the reasons that I felt so bad about it. Like, I think if you're around a three, like the incompetent object, it can be, or it's certainly around me, like as a sexual type. I think that's why I felt so bad, because it's like she did get less attractive as we were friends.
Oh, wow.
I know, I know.
Well, that's
Yeah.
on her too, though. I mean, it's called boundary work.
I mean, we were young, we were really young, but like, the competitiveness,
Right.
the sex,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And she felt less than. And then when she said that to me, I was like, oh my God,
Mm.
maybe that's true. And I felt so, so horrendous. And then the next day I woke up like that was my atonement, right? I was fucking atoning by having rosacea, like really badly.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
My the three that I used to be roommates with and friends with, she used to try to shame me a lot with like visual like looks or something, and she would try to be like she would say things like, because I used to wear belly shirts and stuff, and she would be like, oh, like these girls out in their belly shirts, like, oh, like just, and I was like, you trying to fucking shame me, bitch. I'm just gonna wear them all the time now. So it's like I think when threes do that stuff to me, it backfires. So like, but that was before I knew she was like a three or what that even meant. But I knew what she was doing, and I was like, you're trying to make me less hot. And I'm not having it. I'm gonna start exercising now too. How do you feel about that? Yeah, I do. It does feel like there is these cosmic stories that keep playing out between types, though. So that's like interesting how yours manifested, and like I want to reflect now on how mine probably has too. I feel like I'm in denial about other people like having some effect on me that I feel like I control the story
Yeah.
around how people affect me, but probably don't.
Like the three's looking for who's the power in the room at all times, at all times. And if they feel that they're the power in the room and they should want to, they're going to try and take a chunk out of you, you know?
Oh, damn.
Like looking at prey, right? When I see
Oh.
someone who's not as powerful as me, when I'm like not in a great space, I'll just fucking eat them. I'll eat them because then
Well, maybe that's why I end up dating threes because it's hot. I think that that's what I think almost offends me the most. Like when these things have happened to me is like there's like this sort of salt in a wound, sort of that I can be like replaced, or like somebody could just walk in and just be like, "That's mine now," and that they can just walk away with it. And it's like you like wait, what? But it kind of connects back to the value thing for me, where and I've had to do, and I'm still working on this stuff where it's like if I am seen as having value, if I'm seen as being competent, somebody will come for me and they'll try to take it from me, or they'll try to use me as a resource or make me be something I am not. So I think that I have like overly identified into incompetence, but because I still am like obsessed with things, and I am always like I am trying to master certain things in this world that that I don't even care to share online, because I feel like I don't want other people knowing what I'm doing behind the scenes. It's like, okay, I have Enneagram content. That's one branch on the tree that I am growing. So it's like I have to protect it at all costs, anything I'm like competent at. So then I feel like I inadvertently bungle things to like keep myself safe almost from these predators, where it's like, this is messy, like you don't want to come near this, but then then I think there's still things that are like leaking out, or but I'll be eaten, I'll be
yeah,
like picked clean, so I have to create like a sort of mesmerism to like block out that,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
doesn't, yeah, sorry, ramble, but
it makes total sense, and I think certainly for me, and it's possibly because of having the five X again. I don't know. Like I sort of see the mess, and it's like, oh, it's like a three's mask. Like I see that the three is the mask, and I'll see the kind of the person that they really are behind that. So with you, it's like that doesn't put me off because it's very obvious that you really know what you're talking about. So but that's there, and if I can see that, threes will see it too. Other threes will see that too. You're looking for what's optimal. It doesn't matter how it comes. It's like I think maybe, and also I don't have a six fix, so I'm not looking for lineage. I'm not looking for things like in a beautiful gold book with embossed writing and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. Like if the lineage is good, I'm interested. You know, and I think threes are generally kind of like that. They'll see through it. So even if you're kind of, what's the word, obfuscating? I can never pronounce it.
yeah.
Kind of obscure. It's not going to work with three. Like that's probably why you've had so many kind of entanglements with them, because they'll see straight through and go, oh, that's actually like a really valuable thing. Also,
Mm.
it's the more secret a thing, the more you're interested in it.
Hmm.
It's like figuring out which kind of casket has the jewel in it.
But the casket has a jewel in it, but it also has a little demon. I'm gonna crawl up your leg and bite your dick.
And I can understand that as well. Like I gatekeep a lot. Like if you come to my website, you can't get a session with me for a reason. Because yeah, I mean that's I really understand you wanting to do that.
Well, speaking of websites, because you have like a lot written on like limerence and like kind of the three experience, and like is there anything that like you wish to, I know that you don't want to promote yourself, but I think there would be a lot of value for people in your work. So is there anything you do want to share, Christine?
I didn't want to do it just because it's so kind of tied to ego for me, like as you know. So I was like, no, I don't want to kind of come on and promote myself. But I really appreciate you asking that. I do. I think for me, if people are threes and they're struggling with limerence, you don't have to live with fantasy the whole time. Like it will feel like it's your normal to kind of just be in fantasy about someone else. And it's probably a way that you're triangulating your kind of primary relationship so that you don't have to have intimacy there, or you can manage the intimacy because you're kind of in fantasy about someone else or multiple people. And if any threes out there relating to that, then there is absolutely a way to work with that. So you can live kind of, you can get up in the morning and not immediately think about somebody else. You can just get on with your day, So
I
yeah.
guess that would be appealing to a competency type.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to waste your time in fantasy. Because often trees have that thing of like, I don't know why I'm still obsessed with this person. I don't know why I'm still thinking about them. And like there's the frustration of not kind of being able to kind of let go of it. But it's serving a purpose. It really is. It's like you're trying to kind of regulate through fantasy.
Hmm.
One way of kind of trying to kind of keep yourself buoyant. And there are other ways. It involves withdrawal and it involves kind of going through a process of grieving, but you can kind of shift it.
Oh, I love that. But I hope no threes who have had crushes on me over the years see this. I want them to stay fixated and obsessed.
They
Not
will.
joking.
Difficult to get out with limerence. It isn't any, a lot of people don't understand it. So
Doesn't.
I've had three clients who they haven't seen anybody that they're obsessed with for over a decade and they still think about them every day. Like it's massive. It's really massive for threes.
That would drive me nuts if I was like dating a three and knowing they were probably doing that.
Somebody else. Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's the thing. That's the kind of the pain point for someone in relationship. And if you're a six and you can kind of know that the other person is not fully present with you, you can imagine how intense that would be.
Hmm.
Relationships are often exceptionally fraught because you kind of have a sense that the other person is not completely present.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah.
might be, really like not with anybody else, not having sex with anyone else, not kind of having any intrigue with anybody else, but like in fantasy the whole time.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of my last few exes ago, I think he might be a three, and he for sure had all these weird tendrils to exes and chicks that he had. And I
Oh,
always fucking felt it, and I was just like, this motherfucker, and and I was the crazy girlfriend for part of that relationship, and um but I
you
could feel it. And then
it's
because I'm toxic, I started doing the same thing.
well, it would certainly be a way of getting revenge.
I feel like I could pick your brain for hours. So this is a fucking good episode. Thank you, Christine. This is like high value to fluff you up a bit. But it
I
really
love
is.
that. So I kind of I hope that it's that it's difficult enough for threes to hear that they start to think, okay, so I could do something about this. Because the thing about three is that you're smart usually, you're good with people, and nobody can see the cracks apart from you. And actually, if you know, oh, these are the cracks that every three has, then you can maybe start to kind of work on your structure. And also, as a shame type, you don't want to. It's like very painful to do it, but there's absolutely a way to kind of to get through that. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's so important as well to kind of just be truthful with self. You've got a sort of head start on that if you've got the four wing, but really, really to be truthful with yourself, because any kind of level of deceit as a three and you're just straight into your patterns is so unhelpful to you. Yeah, it's not pleasant, any of the work, I would say. Maybe it's easier for other types. I don't know. Maybe other types kind of like end up thinking that they're a good person. With me, it's kind of really reconciling the fact that there are aspects of self that are greedy, are competitive, deceitful, that you're full of longing, you know, all of that kind of stuff. It's not just about kind of being bright and sparkly, because a lot of the sort of the Enneagram stuff that you read about, oh, the three, the achiever, la 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 la. Like, I'm not interested in any of that. It's not helpful. It's not useful to you if you want to do inner work. So
Yeah. And like just to put like a 4/7 stem frame on it as well. It's like I don't know, it's kind of hot to be like deceitful and longing and like all of these other like sick traits. So it's just like, lean in, like like feel it, be it, you know. Be it openly, not like in the secret museum or whatever.
yeah. Well, you have to kind of be who you are really to figure it out, I think,
Mm.
and stop kind of masking to yourself and others, I think, really.
Although I like the idea of a secret museum. It's kind of a
Mm.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Christine.
So welcome. You're
And
really
I will
welcome.
and I will link your website below. Any final words?
Um, no, it's a pleasure. Really is. It's a pleasure to see you. And it is a very, very hot day here in
Oh,
England.
sorry.
No, no, you don't have to apologize. I'm like in my little black box, and it's like it feels good to do this. It feels kind of um I don't know. I feel like the more I learn about three, the more I feel like how useful it is to share with people. And possibly because of my five fix, like when clients come in and they're threes, and I have a lot of three clients, I'm always like, yay, you know, more data, more data.
Another specimen. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're a pretty special type. I know I've kind of
Yeah.
like absolutely pulled the three apart, but that, I like being a three, really enjoy it.
Oh, good. Well, I clearly like threes too, even though I hate a bunch of them.